This episode is sponsored by Circle K. Get the most savings on every gallon when you fuel with the Circle K Fleet Card. Learn more at CircleKFleetCards.com.
Hello and welcome to the State of the Fleet Industry, a weekly video series produced by Automotive Fleet magazine, which is sponsored by Circle K. I'm Mike Antich, editor of Automotive Fleet, and today I'd like to examine what's occurring in the fleet industry for the week of March 14, 2022. And for this week's episode, I like to take a little bit different tack, and I like to assess the fleet market using the words of actual fleet managers and fleet suppliers. So over the course of a month, I speak to a lot of fleet managers and a lot of fleet suppliers. And when you speak with this many people within the industry, you start to hear repeated common themes. And it's out of these common themes from which you can identify trends that are emerging in the fleet industry. And to no one's surprise, the number one challenge facing fleet managers today is the ongoing difficulty in sourcing fleet replacement vehicles so that vehicle deliveries coincide with the company's planned replacement schedule. I mean, what a concept. I mean, this used to be the norm in the fleet industry, but this hasn't been the case for the past several ordering cycles. And to illustrate this, here are quotes from two fleet managers that encapsulate this concern. And here's the first quote. Quote, "The current situation has created an inventory nightmare." Those aren't my words, those are his words. "An inventory nightmare, making many vehicles unavailable to the fleet market," end of quote. Or how about this quote? Quote, "The key issue for me is the availability of vehicles, namely, will the manufacturers build the vehicles I need or cancel them?" End quote. And this quote goes to the heart of the problem, namely the cancellation of fleet orders after they've been accepted by the manufacturer. And here's how another manager of a major fleet summarized the consternation of order cancellations. Quote, "Manufacturers are canceling my new fleet orders. It's reached a point where I cannot rely on accepted orders to replenish my fleet." End of quote. And this isn't a one-off situation. Here's another quote, this time from a major fleet management company. And I value the feedback from FMCs because they represent a larger cross-section of the fleet market since they place new vehicle orders for a wide variety of client companies. So here's the quote, quote, even when clients plan ahead and order early, order cancellations still occur. In some extreme cases, I've seen clients have more than half of their orders canceled. The only real workaround at this point is to push those orders into the next model year, end of quote. You know, this uncertainty of not knowing whether ordered vehicles will be built is creating havoc with future planning at many companies. And here's one example from a fleet manager who operates a large vocational fleet. So the quote is, "It is hard to grow our business if we don't have the confidence that we will get the additional vehicles needed to meet our growth goals," end of quote. I mean, it's a valid point. How can you hire additional employees if you can't guarantee the availability, in his case, of vans, which are the company's primary revenue generation tool? However, the biggest issue for the past two ordering cycles has been the unanticipated earlier than normal cutoff dates for new vehicle orders. So here's what another fleet manager said, quote, "The earlier order cutoff dates complicate my business because they are misaligned with my internal budgeting process. OEM new model order cutoffs are occurring prior to the release of funding to me in the upcoming fiscal year," end of quote. Okay, so what's the alternatives that are available to fleet managers? Well, one alternative is buying vehicles out of dealer stock. But nowadays, this is a very painful alternative. First, dealer inventory is extremely limited. And as one manufacturer told me, and this is tongue in cheek, he goes, "Nowadays, they no longer measure dealer inventory by days supply, rather they measure dealer inventory by hours of supply." And of course, he said this facetiously, but it does in a funny way illustrate how tight dealer inventory is. Plus, out-of-stock orders have become very expensive. Hear it from the words of another fleet manager, quote, "The few vehicles available on dealer lots are sold at MSRP. not dealer costs, at MSRP, with most dealers charging an additional market adjustment on top of the MSRP price. So this is a market adjustment price on top of an MSRP price. And as he continues to say, fleet orders are taking a backseat to consumer factory orders, end of quote. And as a consequence, fleet vehicles are not being replaced when they need to be replaced, and employees are in vehicles far longer than the stated corporate fleet policy. And due to this difficulty in getting replacement vehicles, fleets have been forced to extend vehicle service lives, which has driven up costs of both preventative and unscheduled maintenance expenses. And here's what another fleet manager told me about these upward pressures on fleet maintenance costs. Quote, increased maintenance costs are starting to hit our bottom line. We are now going on 2 years without any real replacement vehicles, end of quote. So think about this statement. Fleet vehicles average 20,000 miles per year. So you can only imagine what the overall mileage is for these units. And these maintenance challenges are being compounded by a shortage and this ongoing shortage of replacement parts. And here's what another fleet manager said, quote, we've had some trucks down for over a month or two waiting for just one part. And in the past, these trucks would have been back on the road in a day or two, end of quote. The other major challenge to fleet budgets is that prices of gasoline and diesel are skyrocketing, as we all know from our own personal lives. Fuel prices are at record levels. In fact, gasoline prices have never been this high in the entire history of the automotive industry. And as might be expected, this high cost of fuel is bringing out the criminals. It's causing an uptick in gasoline theft, in particular gasoline siphoning. And if you haven't already done so, now is the time to alert your drivers to be on the lookout to help prevent gasoline theft. So check out this photo to see the newest twist in how fuel is being stolen from parked vehicles. And the latest technique used by criminals to steal fuel is to drill a hole in the bottom of the fuel tank and to drain the fuel into a container under the vehicle. And the red circle in the photo is where the thieves have drilled a hole in the fuel tank to drain the fuel. So let me summarize this week's presentation. Fleet costs are increasing, and they'll continue to increase further in the coming months. This is putting unanticipated strain on fleet budgets. So for example, acquisition costs, they're trending upwards. Fleet incentive dollars, they're trending downwards. Expect this to continue into the 2023 model year ordering. Operating costs are hitting record highs, and these cost increases are running the gamut from fuel, the tires, the maintenance expenses. Plus, prices are increasing on products you thought you already bought and already had a pre-negotiated price on. So consider this quote from one truck fleet. Quote, inflation has increased the cost of raw materials used in pre-ordered manufactured equipment and upfit products. Equipment that was ordered in early 2021 at a set price are now arriving with a raw materials surcharge, which adds a couple $1,000s to the invoice. End of quote. This has happened before. This happened back in 2008 is when we last saw this. Deja vu. In today's inflationary environment, fleet budgets are being squeezed, and these inflationary pressures are driving up the cost of most fleet products. And again, let me reinforce this observation by using the words of another fleet manager. So his quote is, costs are increasing globally. Acquisition prices, fuel, interest rates, maintenance, tires, and brakes. And this is being further complicated by longer vehicle replacement parameters, which is increasing the overall cost of ownership. So with this as my final observation, I'd like to conclude my State of the Fleet Industry presentation for the week of March 14th, 2022, and I'd like to thank you for watching.